this is as real as it gets.
This is Nash Gruner, the son of Olivia Gruner, and you are listening to the UCW radio show, In Your Face.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
You're listening to UCW Radio.
In Your Face.
Give it to me, baby.
All right, welcome back to the UCW radio show, and we have another great guest lined up for today. Before we bring him on, I want to remind all our listeners to make sure you go to UCW Magazine and UCW Radio to hear the latest segments, latest shows that we have. Plus, you want to check out Money Never Sleeps and also the soon-to-becoming Fit for Life series. That's going to be not only a radio show, but also a web series, so keep an eye out for that. And just to make you aware, as you know, the last show we did, we tried using Periscope to do a live broadcast, so we can do a Q&A with our guest. That's when we had Nina Bergman on. We're going to try it again today and see how it works. We're trying to figure this out. Okay, so just bear with us. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't work, then we'll try again. We'll try it until we get it right. But again, we're trying to incorporate new technology so that we can connect globally as we need to in this day and age. All right, so bear with us. And again, if it doesn't work out, and if you only hear me this time, as you did with Nina Bergman's show, I apologize for that. But until we kind of get through this and knock out the kinks, these are the growing pains that we're going to endure. So I'll just have another black eye, and that's the way it is. Okay, but anyway, what I want to do is not speak too much right now because we have really a fantastic speaker that we're going to be bringing on. He was Mr. America. He was like a really, really big to-do in the world of bodybuilding, and then still is. He's very extremely relevant. All right, so without further ado, let's bring on former Miss America and an international speaker and author of a best-selling book, Tom Terwilliger. Let's bring Tom on the show. Tom, welcome to the UCW radio show. How you doing, buddy?
I'm terrific, man. And listen, I got to tell you, I've been so looking forward to this interview. The last time we spoke, you were such an intuitive interview. I mean, you just brought so much energy, and I've really been looking forward to this. And so, thank you. I'm doing terrific, and I can't wait to share some things with the listeners.
Well, thank you for the kind words. Last time we brought you on, and we brought you on to our other show, Money Never Sleeps, because we were trying to tackle other issues. Today is the Tom Show. Today is the Tom Terwilliger Show, and it's all about you. Okay, it's all about you because because you have a lot of listeners out there that are heavily involved in bodybuilding. They know who, what, where, why. They know people's shoe sizes. I don't know. And with you were involved in bodybuilding during the heyday. Okay, and you've done a lot of things beyond that. So I think the best thing for us to do, so that the fitness buffs, the bodybuilding buffs, and the people that are looking for motivation, is for us to start at the beginning with you. How did you get involved in bodybuilding?
Well, the first thing, when you talk about the heyday, and you could say that I definitely was involved in the heyday because it was the hey, what the hell are you doing days? I mean, it was the early days of bodybuilding. Certainly, I was not one of the pioneers by any means. I was inspired by the many pioneers that came long before me, the John Grimmicks, the Frank Zane, certainly the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, and the Steve Reeves, certainly, who in bodybuilding, at least from my era, my generation, wasn't inspired by Steve Reeves and the Hercules movies. I mean, this is the guy. I mean, we all want to look like that. Unfortunately, I never quite obtained the good, the Hollywood good looks of Steve Reeves, but at least I strived for the physique. So, not one of the pioneers, certainly, but I do like to believe, and I think there are a lot of bodybuilding fans out there today, a lot of guys who at least experience the sport, in the 80s and the 90s who would definitely agree that it was perhaps the best generation of bodybuilding. There was a camaraderie. There was a brotherhood that took place at that time. Even some of the gyms, and you know this, Lou, is that many of the gyms that we had in those days, for example, the gym that I first started really training seriously at was a place called Future Man Gym in Amityville, Long Island, where the Amityville horror took place. Not a block away from that house was Future Man Gym, and it was hardcore. It was old Nautilus equipment. Of course, at the time, it wasn't that old because it was fairly new stuff, but old stuff that was made in the garage. I mean, just some ragtag stuff that Dan Laurie made, a few weeder pieces, some rusty barbells, but it was also the Mecca at that time in Long Island, in New York. And you can't find those kind of gyms anymore. They're few and far between. There's one or two in California. There's Strong and Shapely in New Jersey. There's Ombros here in Colorado. But they're few and far between. And there was a camaraderie, a brotherhood, an experimentation, a support system. Something was going on in the 80s that created tremendous energy around the whole bodybuilding physique culture. That I am so not only thrilled to have had an experience with and been part of, but honored to be part of it as well. Because things have changed a little bit, whether for the better or for the worse. I don't know. That's for somebody else to say because I'm not necessarily involved in the sport today as I was then. But it was indeed the hey, what the heck are you doing days? And I'm thrilled to have been part of that. It was a great generation, a great era, no question about it.
You made a couple of good points, Tom. Because back then, Arnold and a lot of the legends, they paved the way. However, when you talk about the I guess the real push to mainstream, that's when, like you said, the 80s and 90s, that's when all the magazines were out. That's when you had more bodybuilders doing different things. That's when you even had bodybuilders, going into the WWE, this and that, and all this stuff was transpiring. But, having that brotherhood within, the bodybuilding system was extremely evident back then, because you can go to a gym, and again, a hardcore gym, and most gyms, you mentioned Dan Laurie. I remember Dan Laurie, he had his place, I think, in Five Towns. He had that.
That's right.
Yeah, you can go buy the stuff. So when you had that type of environment, a lot of places now you don't. To find that hardcore environment, to have what was back then is hard. That's why.
I mean,
go ahead.
There were times, and this coming especially from the East Coast, and I understand you're experiencing some pretty hot weather out there right about now.
Oh man, it was melting today. You kidding me?
and I can remember distinctly. I mean, there were no gyms back then with air conditioners. There might have been, the old Jack LaLanne's and the holiday spas, whatever they were called, may have had some air conditioning. But
Do you
the
remember
gyms that we trained out.
Do you remember Zims?
Oh, absolutely.
Remember they had the hole in the wall with the fan?
Yes, like let some air in, for God's sake. But I remember very specifically training at Future Man Gym. I mean, everybody trained. It was Tony Pandolfo, Joe Palumbo, Steve Mahalik would train there in his early days. Several others. Lou Ferrigno would come out on a regular basis and train there. And I remember guys would literally, and you couldn't get away with this today because it's way too offensive, and it was offensive then. But guys would train in the same basic tank top, indoor, the whole gray sweatsuit thing. You know what I mean? The gray sweatshirt, the gray sweatpants, an old pair of Converse. And they would train in those things, sweat bullets because it's roasting in July and August in New York. And then hang that stuff in the locker, leave it to dry, put it back on the next day, and wear it again. And they would do that for literally weeks in a row. Now, I know that does nothing to glamorize the sport of bodybuilding, but at the same time, it was part of that culture. The more ragtag you looked, the more beat up you looked, the more you kind of you smelled like the real deal, the more seriously people took you. And at least in those gyms. Now, I do want to go back for a second because there's something I wanted to credit that I think I didn't when we talked about those 80s and the 90s as part of the heyday. And I think a large part of that, and this is where I was so fortunate to have just come into the bodybuilding community, the world there on a much more serious level at that time, was the movie Pumping Iron. And certainly, Arnold Schwarzenegger bringing bodybuilding, along with the producers George Butler and Gaines, to the mainstream media, if for nothing else, to create more curiosity, to eliminate some ignorance, and to create whether he was an antagonistic hero or not, a hero in that sport that brought it to light. And I think a lot of young guys like myself began bodybuilding as a result of being inspired. It wasn't the movie specifically that inspired me. It was slightly earlier. I mean, it may have been a year earlier, seeing Schwarzenegger on the cover of magazines, photos taken by the long-since passed away Artie Zeller, the black and whites of Venice Beach, and dreaming of what that must have been like and having a physique like that. But it was indeed Pumping Iron that created that generation in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s that became that heyday, that era that we talk about. So a lot of credit has to go to that movie and Schwarzenegger and certainly the producers of that in terms of creating that.
I agree with you, because look, I remember going to you're in New York, you're involved in bodybuilding, you're training, you get excited, and you're actually you start connecting and making friends. I mean, these are friendships. These are friendships different than you have today at the gym. I remember those friendships because they were really, really strong. You go and you kind of connect with people, but then if you're on the East Coast, you're thinking, you know what, you want to train hard. So where do you want to go? You want to go to Muscle Beach. You want to go over there. And I remember going there in the late 80s and early 90s, just going there. Well, more so the late 80s, going there, and you saw everybody there. Everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody was at Gold. I mean, I remember going to World's Gym and I saw Joe Gold and Eddie was there, and then it was just an era that will never be remade because it's
no, it won't. Yeah. There's no question about it. I mean, you can't go to Gold's Gym or Muscle Beach today. Muscle Beach is gone. I was, it was interesting because I was walking down the boardwalk in Venice about a year or so ago, and they literally had a sign because I was looking for it.
Right.
And instead, there was a sign that said that the path home or something of Muscle Beach. There was like a commemorative sign, but that was it. Yeah. Everything is gone. There's some swings, some rings, some things you can do calisthenically, but the actual Muscle Beach is long since gone. I guess it wasn't really well supported after a while. So you're right. That's a time long since gone. And here was my experience. It was interesting because when I ultimately made it, because obviously, we all, anyone bodybuilding in those days with any level of seriousness, and when I say seriousness, it doesn't necessarily mean you were aspiring to compete or be Mr. Olympia, but serious that you were in those gyms, those hardcore gyms, you were creating that camaraderie, you were pushing, you were striving, you were encouraging, you were motivating others as well as being motivated. That's the kind of serious I'm talking about. So anyone who was familiar with that level wanted to go and experience Venice Beach. We wanted to do it. And like you said, before you even started that sentence, you said if you wanted to train hard, if you wanted to be the best, you had to get to Venice Beach. And here was my experience. It was interesting. Because being from New York, and you know this as well, that the guys in New York, when guys were, at least then, now it's changed today, obviously, but the guys back then training in those hardcore gyms like Future Man, R&J Studio, some of the ones that you mentioned earlier, we didn't smile. We didn't play around. We didn't joke. We didn't kid around. We were freaking deadly serious. I mean, when you were on that leg press, man, you were freaking deadly serious. You might have cracked a smile. You might have patted somebody in the back. There was definitely that camaraderie. But it was around the battle, the adventure. And you were deadly serious. When I got to California, I could not believe the difference in the culture.
Yeah.
I mean, guys like Mike Christian, I never saw Arnold train there, but all these guys that were my contemporary, training, laughing, giggling, having fun, taking pauses between sets to chat with someone. I mean, it was like a whole different thing. Now, they trained hard, no question about it. The entire environment was conducive to growth, but it was a totally different experience psychologically than it was in New York. Totally different. It was really interesting.
The two bodybuilders, I remember when I was, when I went to train in Venice Beach, I remember the two bodybuilders that had that hardcore, cross the board, no joking around attitude with the mental fitness.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely.
They scared me. Mike scared me, but you know what? He taught me a lot.
You're so fortunate to have had that experience. I only met Mike once, and it was early on. He was competing in Night of the Champions, and I met him that night. And I think it was Night of the Champions at the time. It wasn't the New York Pro or anything like that. But I had a chance to meet Mike. And, of course, I was a big fan. I was a little younger, certainly than he was, just getting started. But it was a thrill to meet the guy. And he was. I remember his forearms. His forearms blew me away. I mean, it was like, holy crap. He had this, like, semi-long sleeve. It was a shirt that came down, to his elbows, and the forearm sticking out of the thing was just mind-blowing. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. And so that, again, little things like that ultimately inspired. But, when I talk about the difference, that diametrically opposed different philosophy between the East Coast and West Coast was again depicted in many respects in the movie Pumping Iron. When you saw Lou Ferrigno, I mean, he was deadly serious, And then you had Arnold Schwarzenegger laying on the beach and chatting away with his bros, having some fun, and Lou was, just like, hey, he was in the trenches, man. So it was well depicted in that, and that really was the experience.
Yeah, but that's the way it was back then, which is really interesting because now, so many people, and you see it all over the place. Everybody wants to be fit, women, kids, this, that. You got the dog working out, and it's good because it became a lifestyle. But yeah. I mean, I love interacting with people like yourself, Tom, that were there back then, that experienced some of this stuff, because you'll never get those experiences ever again. Yeah. You have guys now that say, well, I'm going to go, I met Phil Heath. Okay, well, happy for you, but if you were around when I was actually younger and I was doing this stuff, you would have met that and 20 more, and you would have been, forget about it. You would have been, probably passed out of excitement.
Oh, it was mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing to go out to Venice Beach. I mean, it was just like, man, you could sit back. It was a show in itself. I remember Gold's Gym, and this was after the original Gold's Gym.
This is when Joe Gold sold it, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, this was, that small place that Schwarzenegger and Franco and all those guys trained. It was the bigger one. It had moved. It had a balcony where the cardiovascular equipment was, but it was still the Mecca, without question. And I remember sitting up on the bicycle up on the balcony, which I rarely did. I almost never did the bicycle. But I was up there, on the stationary bike, just watching downstairs and seeing who was coming and going, and it was unbelievable. It was like a who's who of not only bodybuilding but celebrities. Yeah. I mean, just so many celebrities would come and go from that place and train because they were inspired as well. It was a place to do it. Now that's not to by the way, to put down or belittle what the experience is today, because the experience today, although different, for bodybuilders and physique competitors, male and female physique competitors, it's so different than what it was back then. But it is what it is, and I'm sure if I were 22, 25, 27 years old competing today, the experience, although different and not comparable, it has to be, one that, again, will also go down in the history books, because those physique competitors outside bodybuilding, by the way, those physique competitors, these guys, although they may not be working the legs as hard as bodybuilders, these guys are looking fantastic, man. I mean, the abs and the shoulder, I mean, they look great. And I got to give them all the credit in the world, because it's definitely more competitive than it ever was, because there were just so many more guys, so many more women. I mean, there was no women. I mean, hardly any. I will say this, as part of my experience back in those days, and this took place more in the late 80s and early 90s than it did in the early 80s. But part of my experience was being around and being part of, I actually had some really enriching experiences around the advent, around the pioneers of women's bodybuilding. The Gladys Portuguese, the Rachel McLeishes, the Kay Baxters, I mean, that was really something to see that coming up. And it was interesting because, when I first heard about that, started learning about female bodybuilding, my opinion was just about like everybody else's, women with muscle. You gotta be kidding. That's disgusting. I would never be attracted to that. Well, I thought I would never be attracted until I got around it. Yeah. And then regular women would never do.
Oh, you look at Rachel McLeish, she was like, hey, how you doing?
Absolutely. Gladys Portuguese, Mary Roberts. I mean, these were extraordinary women that were indeed pioneers. I had an opportunity to compete in the World Mixed Pairs Championship up in Toronto with Gladys, and spending, several months prior to the event putting together a routine, training together, and then ultimately going and competing and having an opportunity to be around all these other women. It truly changed my opinion about women, and it was difficult because this now was my new model of what femininity should be, and so it was hard.
It changed
finding
you forever.
the right woman among normal women.
Yeah, it changed you forever.
Yeah.
And just
changed it forever.
Just for those listeners that don't know, that really don't know who Gladys Portuguese is, she was actually married to Jean-Claude Van Damme back then.
Yes, she was. Yeah.
Until certain incidents happened, we're not going to talk about it. But things did happen, and and I know. So now we move forward.
Absolutely. So it was. It was a great era, no question.
So now, but what got you? I mean, you were competing, and you were traveling around and doing that stuff. How did it feel when you won your Miss America title? Because right now, you have all these competitions going on, and you have promoters that are just having events. I mean obviously these events make money. You don't need to say anything. I'm saying it. You have promoters that are throwing events to make money. I get it. That's why you're a promoter, to make money. However, when you're talking about titles, Miss America, Mr. Universe, Mr. Olympia, and if you're winning it, you're going to win the Night of the Champions. There you go. Those are the titles that are highly coveted. The other ones are there, but these are highly coveted. So how did it feel to win that Miss America crown?
Well, it's so interesting, and this goes right to, and I'll weave it in there a little bit with your permission. It goes right to, everything else I teach today in the realm of us, all of us, you, me, and everyone on listening to this broadcast and beyond, our ability to be able to achieve what it is we want, providing first we decide what it is we want. We have to set a goal. We have to create an outcome, a desired outcome, and then we have to find the strength of will to take the consistent action to make it happen, and that starts with a plan. And for me, early on, when I first walked into that gym I mentioned earlier, which was because I'd been training at other gyms, Iron Masters, which was like a gym next to my high school. It was okay. It was decent. But when I heard about Future Man, I rode my bicycle over there. I was probably 15 years old. I rode my bicycle over there. I walked in. The first day I walked in, I wasn't even a member yet. I was just checking it out. The first day I walked in, Steve Mahalik, who was Mr. America at the time, competing for the Mr. Universe. Steve died just a few years ago. He was there, and he was just getting ready for a competition, probably a week or so out, and he had this. First off, he was absolutely beyond belief for a 15-year-old kid. I've been seeing these guys in the magazines, Muscle and Fitness, Iron Man magazine, and stuff. But to see this guy in person was extraordinary. I don't know. Steve was probably 5'10", 230, 240 pounds at the time, and absolutely huge. And he had, he was just like I said, dressed in the typical ragtag garb from the bodybuilding gym. He had an old white beater on that was torn, sweaty. It was more gray than it was white. And he was being photographed for one of the magazines by a guy named Bob Gruskin, who is a legend in the bodybuilding industry in terms of coaching and photography. And I walked in, my jaw must have hit the ground, because here he was doing a lat spread, and then Steve had these massive lats, then a double bicep, muscular pose, and then just working out. I just stood there. I must have been an hour watching and being inspired. The first thing I said to myself, how is it possible that a human being could look like that? The next question I asked myself is, how can I look like that? And when you ask yourself the right question, you can finally ultimately come up with the right answers, unless you let that little inner voice that tries to discourage you all the time from doing your best and manifesting your magnificence. If you don't let that get in the way, the right question will lead to the right answer. And ultimately, that's what inspired me. So Mr. America, when I heard he was Mr. America, that almost immediately became my goal. I wanted to be Mr. America. That was it. I joined that gym the next day, puked my guts up the first workout, went back the next day, found someone that could help mentor me because he saw that I was serious. One thing led to another. It ultimately took me 3 years, not from that point on, certainly, but it took me 3 years, because I had a big, very negative, dark break between that moment, working out in that gym, winning some teenage titles, some very good high-end teenage titles, and ultimately going dark and coming back to the sport. After I came back to the sport, it took me 3 tries to win the Mr. America, win the National Bodybuilding Championship. The first try, I took third, which was a massive surprise to me. Because although I was in the best shape of my life, the guys were amazing. J.J. Marks, Rich Kaspari. I mean, some of my contemporaries were fantastic on the amateur level those days. And I remember my girlfriend who was out in the audience, and I remember in Long Island I had sort of the best legs. I trained legs hard, and I had good genetics helping that out. So I had great legs, great separation, great shape. They were big. And I remember after the first contest, I asked her, I said, so what do you think? What do you think? And the first thing she says is, oh, my God, everybody's got legs. I mean, everybody on that stage had freaking huge, muscular, ripped legs. And it was like, so there goes your advantage. What she's really saying is, there goes your advantage. And ultimately, I took third in that one. Came back the next year, took second. The third year, Lou, was by far the most difficult. And I don't want to go too long with this, but at the same time, it's so pertinent to achieving what we want in life. This experience for me was, after taking second and third consecutively, getting back into it the next year was so difficult because the thing that I had to overcome was my own little inner voice, this own belief that you can go so far, Tom, but you're really not good enough at anything. Period. It doesn't have to be physiology. It could be intelligence. It could be anything, athletics of any kind, to be the best, to be number one. You're not good enough for that. And I still had that lingering belief from an early experience, an early childhood experience that went on for a few years. I took that belief with me. So when I got, I know, hey, listen, the first time going into it, I was still determined to win this thing. I was at hell bent. My goal was set. Boom, I took third. And the second time and then the second time, second. But by the time I got to that third one, which is the momentum, second, third, you either win it this year or you know what? It's going to be much tougher the following year. And I couldn't muster up the belief that I could really do it, that I really could win it. And the thing that changed that for the most part was finding the right guy. Honestly, the right guy to train with. And this is part of what I write about in the 7 Rules of Achievement, which is, number one, know what your resources are. Because you're going to run into obstacles along the way to achieving your goal. No matter how good you are, no matter how smart you are, no matter how determined you are, it's very difficult to do it alone. I called, it was 3 months out. I started training at 4 months out, and I just couldn't pull it together. My diet wasn't coming together. My training, I felt disheartened. For some reason, instead of being motivated by the past 2 years, I was demotivated. And I called my mentor, Tony Pandolfo, who, God rest his soul, did pass away a couple of years ago. Well, great champion bodybuilder. He owned Future Man Gym. Called him up. Hadn't seen him in a couple of years. And I said, Tony, you know where I'm at. If this is my year. If I don't win it this year, I'm in trouble. And I can't get it together, man. And he said nothing. He just, literally nothing other than be in the gym at 6 a.m. tomorrow. And I was there. And he beat the living crap out of me, motivated me, kept me on track for the next 3 months, and ultimately, that's what made the difference. I got to be honest with you. I wish I could say it was my own sheer willpower and determination, but knowing what resources you need, when you need them, and being willing to accept help and support when you need it, make all the difference in the world. It helped me win the national championship. And to answer your question directly, it felt extraordinary to win because I was against some tough guys, man, including Mike Ashley, who took second, and he was really good. He could have beat me that day, maybe by 1 point.
He was fierce, and he had that hairdo.
Oh, he had the do. He had that whole cameo do going on. He had those abs. The abs were. I mean, he had epic abs. I don't know if I've ever seen abs better than his in the entire sport to this day.
And you mentioned physique competitors, and you know what? I mean, of course, it's going to be really a tight competitive environment because how hard is it to work on your upper body every day? You gotta squat. You gotta do legs. For the love of God, do a leg extension, something. You have to, seriously, because that brings your whole body in. You don't need to say anything, but I just need to say that.
Listen, there's nothing more anabolic. There's not one, guys, women, there's not one exercise more anabolic to the body. Yep. Which means, first off, it means you have to go seriously catabolic. When you go catabolic, when you break the body down as much as like squats do, and I'm talking about, and Lou's talking about taking squats to failure, man, crushing yourself, killing yourself. Your whole objective should be to destroy yourself in that gym when you're doing those squats. That's what creates the anabolic response. Mm-hmm. The growth hormone, the testosterone, the response to letting your body then adapt and grow. You got to squat. You have to.
Yep, and that's what it's about. All right, so what we're going to do, Tom, we're going to take a quick break, and what we're going to try to do, and for you listeners out there, we're going to try to Periscope when we come back, and if it works, God bless us. If it doesn't work, this is the second time we're trying it, but we're going to get it right sooner or later. Hopefully we have the right equipment. So, Tom, hang with us, and listeners, hang with us. We're going to be right back after this quick break, and, come back with us on the UCW radio show. Welcome back to the UCW radio show, and we're here with Tom Terwilliger, Mr. America. How you doing again, Tom? Thanks for hanging out. We had to take the quick break, and as you know, we're trying to Periscope now, and I hope that everyone can hear us. I'm hoping that we got this right. If you can hear Tom, please let me know. Just send me a little message here, letting me know that you can hear him. Speak, Tom.
Will do, absolutely. And listen, this is it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to be involved in something that's new, Technology is changing constantly. We see it in the bodybuilding industry. We see it in the fitness industry. We see it in computers and marketing. I mean, everywhere. And this Periscope thing is fun and exciting. But like you said, there's always glitches with new stuff. So let's hope it's working. And I look forward to chatting with some people or getting some questions and continuing the conversation. Yeah, it's been a blast up to this point.
Yeah, hopefully we can get some feedback and get some interaction with some of the listeners, actually. Yeah, so I think, you know what, I don't think that I actually sent this to Twitter, okay, because that's when we're going to start getting feedback. So what I'm going to do, and Tom, just bear with me, because as you said, new stuff. What I'm going to do, I'm going to stop this broadcast. I'm going to restart it. So if you're listening now, come back on in about a second. Let me restart this so I can send it to Twitter so we can get more interaction from people. Are you good with that, Tom?
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely.
Okay, hang on. We're going to do this. I can't believe I forgot to it's one important thing I forgot to do. Press
well, the most important thing was to call me, and otherwise, so you got it. Don't worry about that.
All right, so we're going to do this again. All right, and I think that we're back. Okay, now we're live. We're back. Now this time it went out to Twitter, so hopefully it's going to work now. All right, so now we were talking about you winning the Mr. America title and how it felt. So maybe for the Periscope viewers right now, maybe just express that again so that they can hear it.
Absolutely. It was a fairly long-winded answer because it took me 3 years to specifically. Actually, it was well over 10 years of training and focusing on that objective after seeing Steve Mahalik, Mr. America, at I was age 15. He was competing in the Mr. Universe, and I saw him live doing a photo shoot at the gym that I've been training at, and it just inspired. I didn't think any human being could look like that. And as a 15-year-old, it inspired me, and knowing that he was a Mr. America, that almost immediately became my goal. Like a kid who's just learning how to drive and gets behind the wheel of a sports car, or is a NASCAR fan, someone who wins that Indy, man, that is the pinnacle. Yeah. And so for me, winning the Mr. America, which was an amateur title, I didn't even give a second thought that there's bodybuilding, there's competition beyond that title, like the Mr. Olympia and the Pro Ranks and the Night of the Champions and things like that. I focused specifically on that objective, very focused. For almost 10 years, with a few years short break in there. It wasn't necessarily very productive, but getting back into it took ultimately about 10 years. 3 years, however, of trying. My first year, I took third. Very encouraging, far more encouraging than I anticipated. I did not think I would make the top 10. I was hoping, I was certainly working towards it, but my expectation was just to get in there, try it, let's see what this feels like, let's see how I do against some of the top competitors in the world, right. And then fared very well, more than I anticipated. Second year, I took second. So I had the momentum now going forward into this thing. So the third year, as I mentioned earlier, it was the most challenging by far. And the challenge I had nothing to do with physiology, it had nothing to do with on injury. It had everything to do with mindset. Mm-hmm. My mind began to play tricks on me. My mind began to think, I'm not really good enough to win this thing. Right. I've been good enough now to place high and to do well. But winning it, now I've got the momentum. I might be able to do that. Is that really who I am? Am I really good enough to do this? So the mind starts playing tricks. And what happens is if you make a decision that you're not good enough, and this goes to anything and everything, guys, this has been my experience with everything I've ever done in my life, is that your mind, almost everyone, with very few exceptions, everyone at some point entertains the idea that they're not good enough for whatever it is they're trying to achieve, whether it's to get into a great relationship or have a great relationship, to build massive wealth, start a business, be a bodybuilding or a physique champion, no matter what it is. We entertain this idea that we're not good enough. And for me, it got hold of me. And I had to reach out and find the resources needed to get through it because I wasn't willing to quit. Quitting is not in my vocabulary. It shouldn't be in your vocabulary. Overcoming that belief. Overcoming the odds should be in your vocabulary. That should be in your wheelhouse. And to do that at times, and I write about this in the 7 Rules of Achievement, my #1 best-selling book, is that you have to know when to reach out and what resources to reach out to. And I was able to do that. I connected with an old mentor, and he helped me get through that stage and helped me push through and ultimately win it.
But it's all about the mindset, Tom. It's all about the mindset. If you don't have the right mindset, it's hard to break through, to go beyond and break through that barrier.
It is. I mean, that's as articulately put as I could ever do it, because
I have my moments. I have my moments sometimes.
You do, and they're brilliant moments. Indeed, man. If you can't conquer the mindset, if you can't find the ability to focus your energy, focus your attention, leave out all the distractions that would otherwise take you off track, just as they would have me, then you will never accomplish your dreams. You will never accomplish your objectives. So achieving that Mr. America meant more, I think, than certainly winning the title, which I had been striving for 10 years. I mean, as I said, when I saw Steve Mahalik, that was my goal. I was going to win the Mr. America title, no matter what. That was my objective. And it pulled me out of some pretty dark times having that goal and that objective.
And Tom, but when you were competing, and I just for the purpose of the viewers here that are actually listeners too, when you were competing back then, I mean, just mention a couple of the names that you were competing at that time with, and training.
Oh my gosh,
well.
My contemporaries back then was Rich Gaspari, John Natashek, J.J. Marsh, Lee Labrada, Mike Christian, Gary Stridham, Matt Mendenhall.
Matt Mendenhall.
Yeah.
Oh God. He passed away, I believe, not too long ago, right? Oh,
Matt's still around. In fact, he lives here in Colorado.
I'm thinking about Mike Matarazzo. That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, Mike Matarazzo. What a shame. Mike was still competing as an amateur after I turned pro, but holy mackerel, I did have an opportunity to compete against Mike at the Olympia, I think in 91, I think, man. Holy mackerel, that guy was impressive. Oh, man. So, yeah, I mean, my contemporaries were... So I remember taking that stage the first time at the national championship for Mr. America and standing next to these guys. And in my mind, I was still this 15-year-old kid who was just like getting excited about being in a cool gym around some bodybuilders. Next thing you know, I'm standing next to Rich Gaspari and John Natashek and Lee Labrada, and it just... these are guys that I was looking at in the magazines and admiring and thinking, holy moly, and there I was. Boom, standing on stage with these guys. And fortunately for me, I had created the right mindset to feel confident up there. But what was nice about it, though, Lou, was that I still had the same excitement. It was as much fun as if I was a 15-year-old kid, suddenly transported into like this, pro bodybuilder's body and standing on stage with these contemporaries that were just extraordinary. It was exciting. It was fun. And unfortunately, I was able to develop the mindset along the way with some help, with some resources, with some support to make me feel as confident as needed to be to ultimately capture that title against some extraordinary competitors.
And when
it is all about mindset, though, especially at that level.
Exactly, it is. And back then, you were breaking through a lot of barriers, and competing. Even though bodybuilding was around for a little bit with Arnold and everything, pushing everything through. The point is that everything was still evolving. Everything was still evolving in the world of bodybuilding, and actually, because you were one of the smart ones that actually learned from it and cultivated your own system. That has nothing to do with bodybuilding, as far as that being the end all, but it was just it brought you to develop your system. I'm hoping I'm hoping that. That you guys that are watching on Periscope, if you can hear Tom, just please let me know, because I have no way of knowing. So unless you participate, I don't know. We don't know. So I'm hoping that you can. So if someone can just say something, that would be fantastic. Because we
for God's sake, say something, man!
Yeah. Well, we're trying something new, and I'm just hoping that it actually does work. So we don't know yet. We will.
Well, I mean, this is the nature. And by the way, this is again, good lessons in bodybuilding and in life in general. I mean, you have to try new things if you want to be cutting edge. If you want to be the best, you have to be willing to try something new that may not be completely proven. Certainly, maybe you haven't proved it in terms of using it and applying it yourself in many respects. But you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to say, hey, you know what? We tried it. It didn't work. We'll get it right next time. The first time entering that National Bodybuilding Championship, I was third. Very encouraging, but I didn't win. Had to go back. Had to try it again. Had to figure out what worked, what didn't work, and then find a way to make it ultimately come together, just as we will with this. So if you're experimenting with technology, man, it's dicey these days.
Yeah.
It's hit and miss in many respects, right?
Yeah, I like with what we're doing right now, Tom. Because I'm really wanting to utilize this as a tool so that we can learn from it and kind of put it into motion to actually integrate it not only into our show but into other things that other people are doing, because connecting globally is a key thing at this stage of the game. Because if you're not connecting globally,
absolutely.
if you're not utilizing social media to do that, it's a little difficult. But again, I'm just hoping that somebody does say something so that I know.
That lets you know.
Yeah, because you know what it is, that this is a mobile application. So I have no control of it, and I can't hear what we're doing because I have it on a mobile device.
Yeah.
So.
And I understand. I think my wife got on, but I think she got on the computer and looked for it and looked to download it. Wasn't aware that it was actually a mobile device, so probably wasn't able to listen at this point. I know she was looking forward to it as well. I'm sure she would be saying something whether she's hearing us or not. But like I said, it's one of those things where you give it a shot. If it doesn't work, you'll learn something. We all will, But it's so much fun to do these things, especially with you, Louis, because you're one of these guys that's not afraid to take a chance, not afraid to take a risk, to try something new, literally live and in the field, which we are right now.
Yeah, this is.
Seriously, and just put it into work. Hey, listen, it doesn't work. You take a little mini black eye and you get back in there and you keep swinging, right? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like Rocky said, it's not about how hard you hit; it's about how hard you can get hit. And maybe we're getting hit a little.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, look, I got a black eye from yesterday. Get a black eye today. That's fine, because until I listen to the replay, I have no clue if they hear me even. So,
So are you still recording for the show?
Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it, and we're I'm
awesome.
I'm hoping that that it is because people can replay it. So now let's talk about your book. Because again, the show they'll be able to hear the show anyway. Let's talk about your book. Let's talk about what's going on and how you actually developed all that.
Well, the book came about a few years ago. I started writing it about 5 years ago. It was published about 2.5, 3 years ago, and it came about primarily as a desire to share, like we're doing today, with as many people as possible, some of the strategies that I've used in my own life to achieve some things. Mr. America, after winning that Mr. America title, I was fortunate enough to be able to manifest that into enough confidence, enough energy, and enough backing to open up several athletic clubs in New York and down here in Denver, and also do a television show on Fox Sports Net, which I did for 16 years. And I only mention those things to illustrate that with a specific strategy and a belief in yourself and a willingness not to take no for an answer, you can achieve just about anything. I'm in the process of achieving more today than I ever thought possible 10 years ago. And that's part of that process, is that, you can't see what's really possible until you climb to the summit that's directly in front of you right now. Whatever that summit is for our listeners right now, hey guys, man, you're facing either your first competition, your third competition, maybe you got your ass handed to you the last time, but you got to pull yourself back up and face that summit, because unless you get back to that summit, you can't see what's next. You can't see what's possible. It's blocked by your own limitations. So that's something I learned along the way, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to share those things. I wanted to share the strategies I used, not only use, but learn from some of the best along the way, because quite honestly, Lou, I mean, you know, becoming national bodybuilding champion after coming out of a background, which we haven't talked about, which was this literally hardcore biker background, fighting with some of the most hardcore outlaw bikers in the country for 5 years, being able to do that required a real shift in mindset. And I learned from some of the best, Maxwell Maltz, certainly Tony Robbins, you know, Napoleon Hill, many of the others, countless others that I read and listened to, and ultimately started changing my thinking. And I wanted to share those things. So I started writing the book after using the same tools, the same strategies with many of my clients in the personal training community. We had 3 personal training clubs here in Denver. Started working with a lot of trainers, teaching them how to put these strategies into action, which are simple, basic strategies, basic tactics. So I started writing the book based on that, the 7 rules of achievement. What are those 7 rules? You know them. If you're willing to apply them, and you're willing to be tenacious with your quest, man, you can achieve just about anything. Achieving that book and finding the resources to be able to take it to number 1 on Amazon was part of that process. I wanted to prove, not only to myself, to those people, but to those people I'm sharing these strategies with in the book, that I can employ these same strategies and do almost anything. Getting that book to number 1, getting it published, was part of that social proof, you might say. So I recommend it. Learn the rules. Apply the rules. Be tenacious. And you can achieve anything, man. Anything.
Well, I mean, that's what it is. You have to want it. You have to want it badly enough to want to fight for it. If anything worth having is worth fighting for. And I say this myself, Tom, and I'm sure that you would wind up agreeing with me, that if you're given something, as human beings, if you're given something and it doesn't cost you anything and there's no effort involved, you take it for granted. It happens. You take it for granted.
Yes,
when you have to
absolutely.
fight, when you have to fight for something, and when you have to go and claw and kind of go and burst through adversity, burst through all that stuff to get that same thing, you appreciate it more and then you want more of it.
Absolutely. And I can remember, remember the original Jurassic Park, and you'll remember the scene where the scientists and some of the others that were on the island just seeing this for the first time. They were in their little Mercedes-Benz SUVs, and they came across the big fence, and behind the fence was a tethered goat, if you remember that scene. And the scientist, the head scientist, I can't remember the actor's name, said, "What's that for?" And the curator said, "Oh, that's to feed the T-Rex." And he says, "The T-Rex doesn't want to be fed. It wants to hunt." And it's the same with men. It's the same with all of us. As human beings, we have to hunt. We have to achieve. We have to strive. If we're given, you're absolutely right, we take advantage of it. If we're given, we don't appreciate it. If we're given, we become weaker. Our will, our drive diminishes as opposed to get stronger, man. This is part of the problem with, with so many social services out there. Today, we're creating a society of weak, unwilled individuals that don't know what it's like to work and strive. And we need to do that, man. Listeners, do not take the shortcuts. The shortcuts will weaken your will. Find a way to make it harder, and then toughen yourself along the way, and then nothing can stop you.
Yeah, I mean, there's an entitlement issue where people think that they're entitled to something. You're in America, you think you're entitled to have everything, all the benefits. No. You're here because you have freedom. And freedom, costs. But you know what? Take advantage of it and go out and make your bones and do what you need to do to achieve something. No one's going to give it to you. And if they do give it to you, you're not going to appreciate it anyway. So go fight for it. I mean, I'd rather fight for it.
Absolutely. And, just about everything I've had to achieve, I had to fight for, no question. And listen, part of that fight is, again, with your own internal dialogue. It's with that default mode that tends to have us believe that we're not good enough, that we're not capable or worthy, for that matter. And fighting that feeling, fighting that deep belief along the way is part of that battle. But if you're not striving for something, that you want, a goal, an objective, then you never get a chance to really exercise that and change that default mode along the way. It just doesn't happen by itself.
Yeah, I agree, and then I think that for any listeners out there, if you want to change something in your life, if you want to change how you see things, how you perceive things, how you want to actually better yourself, definitely look and find Tom Terwilliger's book. Find it. This guy is an achievement mentor. He is, if you wanted to listen to someone, okay, I'd rather listen to someone that has overcome adversity than someone that just goes and throws out motivational quotes on social media. Okay, I'd rather go and learn from someone that actually has broken through adversity to achieve something great. Because there's nothing better than that, Tom. There's nothing better than that.
Absolutely. There's something to be learned from anyone, for that matter. In fact, many of the tools and strategies I teach in the 7 Rules of Achievement and many of my other programs, like the Inner Game of Confidence and Experience to Lead, the Epic Men Mastermind. A lot of the tools and the strategies and the techniques that we teach in there and the lifestyle principles that we teach in there could be taught by anyone and are being taught by several others. And so you can learn from them, but at the same time, there's a congruence with, at least for me, and I totally get what you're saying, Lou, is that there's a congruence with, there's an ability to accept on a different level what someone is sharing with you if they've used it in our own lives, like you said, to overcome adversity, to beat the odds, and to achieve something that they might never have achieved otherwise. So we listen deeper. We listen more intently. We get it. I've heard the same message for the most part. Set goals, know why you want to achieve what you want, know the direction you want to create a map. Well, hold it. I've certainly listened to and heard from countless individuals, but there are only a few that really resonated with me, so I got the message finally. Oh, man, I've heard this several times, but I get it now. I understand it now. I can employ it now because it was on a deeper level, man. So perhaps I'll resonate with some of you folks out there, some of you guys out there, some of you ladies out there, and I would be honored. I would certainly be honored if you would pick up a copy of 7 Rules of Achievement. You can certainly find it on Amazon, or you can go to maxmindset.com. That's my website, and check out other things we're doing, and certainly leave a comment, and let's get into a conversation. I would be honored by that.
I think that any listener out there, again, any of you guys out there that want to be inspired, that you need. Sometimes people need that something extra. You need that something to motivate you to want more. Okay, if you wanted that, pick up 7 Rules of Achievement. Okay, and check it out. And you trust me, you're not going to be disappointed, because I don't recommend a lot of things on my show or on social media, only things that I believe in. Okay, and 7 Rules of Achievement, this is something that I believe could help you. So if I believe that, hopefully that you believe that too. And
well, they should, because you're a man to be admired. You're doing a lot. Like I said, one of the things I respect so much about you, Lou, is that you're out there doing it. You're in the field, man. You're sharing, and you have the guts to do something like we did today, which was just get in. Don't script it out. Don't write any questions out. Let's just have some fun, run with it, and it takes a little courage. It takes some experience. Yeah. You don't want to jump in a pool without any experience on how to swim. You might just sink.
Yeah. Yeah, true. True.
But at the same time, you do a little due diligence, and then you just, one of the things that I learned early on too, Lou, and you know this as well, is that, and I believe I learned this from Napoleon Hill, reading many of, his work, in terms of learning from some of the best and most successful people of that era, was that really successful people, and this doesn't necessarily just lend itself to financially successful, but successful in life in whatever way you see yourself and want to achieve in your life, is that they're decisive. Mm-hmm. They take action. They will do some due diligence. Obviously, they need to know an investment they're getting into. Obviously, they need to know a little about the person they're getting into a relationship with. But once they've learned what they feel is enough, and that doesn't go on indefinitely, they make a decision, and they make it quickly. And then if they have to make or change that decision, they don't do it quickly. They don't make a decision and change it. Make a decision and change it. No. They're slow in changing the decision because they believe, they have the confidence that the decision was the right decision in the first place. So if something's going wrong, something's not right, I'm not going to immediately change it. It's like, oh my God, we must have blown it. We screwed it. No, they take their time. So see how you could employ that in your life as well. You know, when I saw Steve Mahalik, Mr. America, I made a decision pretty quickly because I was already lifting, already working out, already in love with strength training and the feeling confidence I was getting from it. But as soon as I saw Mr. America, I made a decision very quickly that I was going to do that. I was going to create that in my life. I was going to have that in my life. And then followed it up with massive action on a regular basis, on a consistent basis. So make decisions quickly, take action, follow it up as quickly as possible as soon as you make that decision, and solidify it in your body, solidify it in your unconscious mind, so you start to move almost automatically the next few steps towards achieving that objective. But that's the commonality, man. They all make decisions quickly.
And that's what it comes down to. And you have all this stuff and all these tools, you know, are in your book, 7 Rules of Achievement. And, you know, again, you know, I think it's a must-read for anyone that's looking to better themselves. Now, Tom, I know that, you know, again, we did a little... We did a little experimentation today, and we still don't know if it worked or not, but we're going to find out. But, you know, if you can do me a favor, if you can give your website information, your social media information, so that if any listeners are out there that may want to follow you and learn more about what you're doing, they can actually go and do that.
I'm Lou. For some reason, you're fading. I couldn't quite hear.
I
what
said,
you said on that left.
Well, what I was saying is that if you can give your website and social media information.
Absolutely. Well, that's simple enough. You can go to my blog at maxmindset.com. You can also look at and see what I'm doing. I love to send people here because it's a fun place, especially for bodybuilding, fitness, and athletes, to go to muscleandfitness.com online, pull up the videos, and take a look at what we're doing on Max Mindset. The Max Mindset videos are really fun, great stuff. It's all related to physiology and mindset. So really great tools in there in terms of all videos, and just a lot of fun to watch them as well. So maxmindset.com, my site, Muscle and Fitness Max Mindset videos, or you can even look me up, Tom Terwilliger. That's Terwilliger, Tom Terwilliger. On Facebook, would love to connect with you, man. Let's continue the conversation.
There you go, and there you have it. You know, again, another great show, another great guest, and again, we're gonna revisit with Tom down the road because he has so many amazing things going on, but he has so much to add to the conversation. So, Tom, you know, if it's okay with you, I want to bring you back on at some point in the near future so we can continue this conversation, because you and I can speak about, you know, the hey, what's happening, you know, day of bodybuilding, because, you know, I mean, reminiscing of those times actually could, you know, give some insight to these younger guys coming up in the ranks.
Absolutely. No question about it. I mean, listen, we can all learn from history, that's for sure, especially the early days of whatever it might be. We ignore history, man. We ignore our potential to change the future. So we've got to do that, Lou. And by the way, I want to not just as a reciprocation, but for my listeners, for the guys that are just kind of like learning from me, I need to interview you two, brother, because you are a mover and a shaker, and the people you know and the people you've connected with and the stuff that you're doing, it's ballsy, it's awesome, it's action-oriented, and that's everything we should all strive to be. So I need to capture some of your sound bites as well in an interview. So let's plan that in the near future,
look
okay?
at you. You're flipping the script, but I'll do it. I'll try it. Maybe we'll Periscope. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll try. We'll see.
That's right. We'll see if you're as ballsy on the other end of that mic.
Yeah, I think we may need a filter. I don't know. But no, I'm in for it. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Absolutely. It's been a real pleasure, man.
Same here,
Always
Tom.
is. Always is.
Thank you so much. And for our listeners, again, check out Tom Terwilliger on social media, on Muscle and Fitness. Check out his websites. We'll have that on his page, and you'll be able to click on the links. Definitely pick up a book of seven Rules of Achievement. Do the digital thing with your Kindle and your Apple and everything else, and make it all happen. And I want to thank you for tuning in. And definitely, Tom, thank you for being a part of this show and being such a good sport with our experimentation that we did. But for our listeners, I want you to join us. We're gonna try to Periscope until we get it right. So our next guest, hopefully they're as joyous to roll the dice and take a risk like we did today. Tom, thank you again, and make sure you tune in to the next episode of the UCW Radio Show.
Initiating shutdown sequence.
You're listening to UCW Radio. In your face.
What is your major malfunction?
So let it be written. So let it be done.
Ladies and gentlemen, my mother thanks you, my father thanks you, my sister thanks you, and I thank you.